Boys, girls, all my traumaholics out there, I'm Joe. Welcome back to Otherobert. And I have the privilege of talking about Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice. Right out the gate, this was not Batman v Superman. It wasn't. I'm sorry. This was Watchmen 3.0. I mean, Man of Steel wasn't that good. This wasn't what it should have been. These movies are still... Zack Snyder saw Christopher Nolan's movies and said, hey, I want to do that, but with more. And it didn't work here. It didn't work whatsoever. This movie was a big failure. Where do I begin? I mean, how about the lackluster story that was boring? I mean, that's what it all comes down to, right? I mean, excitement. This was far from that. It's called Batman vs. Superman, yet they only fight for a couple minutes. Okay. I mean, so much of the movie didn't need to happen. This movie was lost. It was lost throughout so much of the movie. The acting, however, because before I get into destroying this as much as I'm going to, the acting was the best point in the movie. It really was. I mean, Henry Cavill, Man of Steel, yeah, I obviously was not a fan, but he was a good Superman. There was nothing wrong with Henry Cavill. He did just fine. Amy Adams, fine, wonderful. And then everyone was worrying about Ben Affleck. He did great. He was a great Bruce Wayne and Batman. He was great. I thought he did wonderful. Gal Gadot even did pretty good for, her role was kind of minimal compared to others. Jeremy Irons, I mean, the cast was huge. Lawrence Fishburne was in there. I love Lawrence Fishburne. And Jesse Eisenberg. I hated the idea of Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. And although this wasn't the Lex Luthor that so many of us were expecting, I was pleasantly surprised with Lex Luthor. He was really the only part of the movie I found myself interested in. And he was engaging. And in the trailers, I thought he looked corny with a lot of the things he said. And yeah, I mean, a lot of it was kind of cheesy and it was very gimmicky. But he made it all kind of work together. The sum of all the parts was greater than the individual parts. I just butchered that saying. But the overall character that was Lex Luthor was greater than just individual scenes, if that makes sense. They all kind of worked together as opposed to just one individual scene. Because that's who he was, and he was very good at it. And he was very flamboyant and very charismatic. And he was just... You were interested when he was... I mean, at least I was. He was very engaging when he was on screen. So the cast did great. The acting was very, very well done. Now we get to everything else. I mean, obviously there's the direction of the movie, right? And that's... Zack Snyder is the director, and I don't know. It's just... They're still trying to do this whole dark and gloomy gimmick, and it's not working. It's just not, guys. They did Batman vs. Superman, and did not feel like Batman vs. Superman. It felt like just a regular... It felt like Lois Lane, the reporter, with special guest appearance from Superman and Batman. And then the last 30 minutes was just darkness and flashes. So, it was very just unexciting for so much of it. And with a title like Batman vs. Superman, it should be exciting. This is something that so many people have waited so long to see on the big screen, and ultimately, I don't think this is what a lot of people wanted, or were expecting, or were hoping for. was even close to any of that, because it just wasn't. It wasn't anything that anyone pretty much wanted, and after having seen it, it was a mess. And it goes a lot into the direction that they took with this. I mean, like I said, the dark direction. It's got to end. I mean, so much death with Superman and Batman, which is not who their characters are, and that's a very big deal about them. That's pretty material to who they are, and it's just kind of being ignored and kind of glossed over. And I don't get it. I really don't get it. And yeah, no, I'm pretty much ranting at this point. But this is a big movie. I mean, all of us are. And I expect you guys to rant in the comments down below, and I will be reading them and responding to them. This is a big deal. This was Batman versus Superman. And I don't think we really got that. But, I mean, like I said, the writing was also very weak. The music was it would have been okay in another movie, but it didn't fit this one. It would be kind of, dun 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 dun. It'd be picking up in very random anticlimactic scenes. Someone would be walking out of a helicopter and it would be crescendoing, and it would be all up in your face, and it would be very confusing because it doesn't belong here whatsoever. I don't know. I mean, honestly, we can just go on forever, right? And just talk about how bad it is. When we come down to it, though, the story was all over the place. It was jumbled. 5. There were 5 dream sequences. 5. That was the most dream sequences I've seen in a movie since Halloween 2. It got so bad that you knew a scene was going to be a dream. And I'm not talking about flashbacks. They had flashback scenes. Fine. That's completely fine. That's to be expected. But a dream sequence? Come on. There'd be a scene and the person would just wake up. There's one part where there's a dream followed by, guess it, another dream. Was this Inception? I don't know. 5. I counted 5. Maybe there were more, but there were definitely 5 independent dream sequences, which were not very welcome. And one of them, at least one, to my knowledge, I don't remember the rest of them, but at least one was a very drawn-out action sequence, and then it turned out to be a dream. Don't do that. That's insulting. Don't do that. It just wasn't needed. It felt like they wanted to throw some action in there just to be like, oh, it's Batman and Superman. We have action, but just in dreams. So it's like none of it actually matters. Back to boring. And I'm not saying boring because it was dialogue heavy. Obviously, I'm fine with that. I have no problem with a dialogue heavy movie. However, when the title of the movie is Batman versus Superman, you're kind of alluding to the fact that this is going to be a fight. And you don't really get that. You get that for a few minutes towards the end of the movie. And then after that, you get a bunch of flashes and darkness for the rest of the movie. But you don't get what's advertised. You get a little taste of it. And then that's it. And Rob will talk more about, spoilers and everything in the spoiler review. This is non-spoilers right now, so as much as I want to, I'm not going to be getting into specific scenes. But you can't advertise someone versus another person and then don't really get that. I mean, that's just me, but I mean, it's kind of obvious, right? But the dialogue itself it was still very boring. It was a lot of it. There's kind of this whole subplot throughout the movie that ultimately connected to Lex Luthor, and it really did not need to exist. whatsoever. Um, it just felt like so much of the movie was just trying to fill time, which is a huge mistake. I mean, when your main competitor in these type of movies is Marvel, and they're killing it, right now, you you want to make the most of your time. Don't make it 2.5 hours just to make it 2.5 hours. If you're going to make it 2.5 hours, use that, right? I mean, you don't have a lot of movies in this universe right now to really slack off, and that's what this felt like. It was slacking off. It felt like filler. Filler. I mean, the only movie before this in the universe has been Man of Steel, and that wasn't a home run. So this was your chance to really build yourself, and you failed. And I don't know. I'm going long, and I don't want to. I know it's become a rant, and I don't want it to be that. It's not the worst movie I've ever seen. There we go. Okay. Um, it's not. First of all, what was advertised. Second of all, what anyone would want. It was too dark. The tone was all off. The direction was all off. It continues. It looks like it's going to continue to be all off. It's not connecting, and I think that needs to change. But that's it for me. Um, Overall, just wrapping everything up. A few words. Music would have been fine if it was another movie. Didn't fit in the way they were trying to use it. Um, the writing weak. The directing misguided and confusing and should not have been what it was whatsoever. The acting actually very good. Jesse Eisenberg has never impressed me until now. The overall movie just weak, just boring, right? And I don't think anyone was really expecting a boring movie with Batman vs Superman. But that's it for me. Let me know what you guys thought. Maybe I'm the minority here. Maybe you guys loved it. Let me know down below. Um, no spoil. If you want to do spoilers, say the whole spoilers thing, and then give lines. That way, you're not spoiling it for everyone else. But there, like I said, Rob is doing a spoiler video. So if you want to talk spoilers, that might be the place to do it. But let me know your overall thoughts on the movie. Subscribe because it takes around just that much effort to do so. Until next time, you have been traumatized.